Hey everyone, today I welcome Professor Barbara Oakley, a very remarkable human with a remarkable journey. Um, I consider herself a polymath, a superwoman, and her life story is super inspiring and diverse. So, from her early days as a linguist and US Army signal officer to becoming a renowned professor and author, her path has been anything but conventional. With a Ph.D. in systems engineering and a career that bridges neuroscience and social behavior, Barbara had made significant contributions to engineering education and research. Her unique experiences from translating Russian on fishing trawlers in Bering Sea to working at the South Pole Station add rich layers to her narrative. Though I did not ask her about any secret bases in the South Pole Station, perhaps next time. So join us as we delve into Barbara's insights on learning, innovation, and complex interplay between technology and humanity. Whether you are an aspiring engineer, a lifelong learner, or simply curious about the intersections of the different fields, her story and her insights will inspire you to think differently about your own journey. Hope you enjoy our conversation. Thank you. Professor Barbara Oakley, it's a pleasure of having you here.
Shamim, it's a pleasure to be here.
Such an honor because I've read your works and the way you have been inspiring people and students and in the art of learning. It's super inspiring. The first time I came across you was through a TEDx talk, and then I bumped into your book and then read a bit about yourself. You're a professor of mechanical engineering, if I'm not mistaken.
Well, I'm in systems engineering, and that's
Systems.
what my doctorate is in. Yeah. Who knew? I mean, as a child, I was about as far from an engineering professor as you could possibly imagine because I was not a math and science person at that time.
Awesome. And how did you transition where did you find generate the passion to help others in the art of learning? How did that take place?
Oh, that's a good question because I've never thought of myself as a great teacher or anything like that. I'm actually pretty shy. So if I can find an excuse to run away from people, and read and things like that, I'm very happy to do that. But I just sort of accidentally became a professor in that when I was graduating with my doctorate, they said, "Hey, there's an opening here. Um, why don't you go ahead and continue on, apply to become a professor at our university where I had been studying?" So I said, "Sure," and I applied, and to my surprise, they accepted me. And it was really hard. I remember those first days of trying to teach, and I was so nervous in front of other people. But I would, crack jokes and have a little bit of fun. And even when I goofed up in my teaching, because we had a little fun in the classroom, they would forgive me. But then over the years, I began to notice since I'm always liking to write and research other things, and I was researching neuroscience, researching cognitive psychology, finding holes in the way that cognitive psychologists looked at things. And I realized eventually that there was not a lot of focus being put on neuroscience and how we actually learn. And I became interested in just showing people some of the insights about how the brain works so they could learn more easily and also so they could overcome some of the fads in education that actually are pernicious and that make it more difficult to learn. So anyway, I kind of backed into it over a number of years, and then when Terry Sinowski and I did the MOOC, the Massive Open Online course, Learning How to Learn, it became, I mean, we were shocked at how popular it became. And so then that really told me that are very, very interested in this. So
Just
I dived even
there,
deeper.
I might have lost you at when you and your colleague started the online course. Can you continue from there? There was like a small pause.
Okay, so so Terry Sinowski and I created the course Learning How to Learn, and it became shockingly popular. We had no idea, even before the course launched, there were over 100,000 people in it. So that's when we began to learn that people are not just interested in the old school ways of thinking about how we learn, but they are interested in insights that are research based from modern neuroscience, especially when they're conveyed in a simple and funny way that is practically useful.
Thank you for sharing that. And I totally agree with you. Like I just recollecting my days in high school and university. I do not have many tools of or ways that teachings of how to learn a specific subject. The teacher professor would come in, give us a lecture. Some of us would write down. So everyone had their own natural ways, and I've seen the people who were lucky to have good guides or parents, that they could study later on, or tuitions as we call it. So they excelled, and I was not the best of student. And one thing I recognized was I love to play soccer, and after any game, after a few hours of game, I felt so relaxed and so energized. I could retain an information really easily. So then I realized the importance of exercise, and how to use the body to connect the mind and understand and perceive the world at the same time, be a better learner, grasp things much better.
That is so interesting because I came at learning from going to the Defense Language Institute and learning how to learn a language. In that case, I picked Russian at random. But but you came at it from the idea of sports. And and you are so right about how exercise can help uh, increase the amount of brain derived neurotropic factor, BDNF, in the brain, which helps us with learning. But more than that, sometimes sports will teach you this idea of you need to practice. You need to really get this idea of how to do some sort of maneuver i- without even thinking about it. And that's also an important part of learning. You want to have an intuition about the right thing to do. So, sports, I think, was a really good way for you and for many people to get into what is good learning.
And you are also an author of many books, a book about mind shifts, and your last book that I've read was Learning Like a Pro, where you briefly touched upon a number of factors, including mindfulness, techniques, and various other factors and different learning retrieval techniques that one could utilize. So, let's say someone who's starting out brand new, what advice would you give them? What are some of maybe a few tools that are readily available to us, but that we are not aware of on a day to day basis that we could access in becoming a better learner?
Oh, one of the key ideas in learning that has really been brought to the fore in the past couple decades is that it's important for you to get the information in your own mind, not just read it on a page and think that it is somehow magically transported into your mind. At the time you're reading something, if you understand it and you're looking at it, you'll go, that's in my memory. I'm going to remember it for sure. But only if you, for example, look away from the book and then see if you can retrieve or recall what that key idea was. Only then can you be sure that it's really sunk into your memory. And I can't tell you, I mean, I'm like an expert on learning, and I will be looking at a page and I go, man, I've got this. I look at a picture and I go, yeah, I got it. It's perfect. And then I'll try to remember what that picture was the next day, and it's gone because I didn't actually learn it. I was looking at it and thinking it was in my mind, but it wasn't. So this idea of retrieval practice, of not just looking at stuff, but making sure through practice and doing flashcards and looking away from pages and seeing if you can retrieve the key idea, these are invaluable tools, and they're free. You can always retrieve the information, and that's good practice.
Thank you for sharing. It's indeed a really powerful, underappreciated practice. And also, so another thing I've realized, especially from personal experience, is for me at least, I have to be in a good headspace before I, indulge upon especially a new topic. And then also I have to get rid of distraction and things like that. So basically, it's a lot to do with the neurochemical structure within us. The dopamine systems, the acetylcholine, the chemical for responsible for focus, and things like that. And so our bodies are complex systems, right? So that you could have a number of inputs, light, sound, and things like that. So what, according to you, are some of the major factors that could deter or improve your learning?
Well, there is no question, but if you are in a home where people are screaming constantly at one another, and making it very difficult to concentrate, it's pretty tough to concentrate. So getting yourself in a physical space where it's quiet and you can focus is, or relatively quiet. For me, sometimes I'll make my own physical space because, for example, if my husband is watching television, I just put on a heavy duty set of hardcore earphones and I just muffle out the sound and I'm in my little world where I can focus. So having your own portable earphones, it can be surprisingly helpful. But more than that, I do think it is a little bit like the advice they often give to writers. Writers will say, um, oh, I didn't feel like writing today, so I'm not going to write. Well, actually, that's not a writer. That's someone who aspires to be a writer. A writer, a real writer, says, I don't feel like working today, and that doesn't matter because I have to work and I have to write, and that's what I'll be doing. And it's surprising that when you sit down and get yourself going on things, it can, your mood shifts around so it becomes more supportive after a while. There, there's often sort of a pain in the brain when you first begin working on something you don't like or don't want to do. But oftentimes, after about 20 minutes, research shows that that pain will minimize and disappear. For me personally, if I'm starting a brand new subject and I'm not really interested in learning this stuff, I will often tell myself, okay, then I have to do one Pomodoro, that is 25 minutes of focused attention, work on that every day for a while, if I have the luxury of being able to do that. And what happens over a couple of days is the first day I work on it and I'm like, "God, I don't want to do this." Second day, I'm like, I don't want to. And by the end of a few days, I'm like, really, I think I want to work a little longer on this. This is kind of interesting. Let me finish this thought, and then by the end of 10 days or so, your mind somehow shifts so that you're enjoying something that at first you thought you wouldn't like at all. So just allowing yourself the leeway to begin to get comfortable with something that you initially think you don't really like is a good way to go.
Thank you. Yeah, human beings are super interesting creatures. We all are unique, but at the same time, we thrive on some basic principles, um, especially the way we are designed. We have a limited number of like there's a everyone has a range, lifespan. We are here, and learning is pretty important. From the days our ancestors learning how to hunt, learning how to uh, go through rough terrains, survival, etc. And then this age requires a different type of learning as well, because we have to use our brains more than our bodies. Unless you are in the military, a new generation, new challenges. So I'm also really curious about, are we implementing the right principles in the schools these days? What are your thoughts? What do you like? What do you dislike? And what do you like? And how can we change the culture so that, we provide the base level of tools to the newer generation, that could help us create a better future?
So I'm intensely interested in um, having quality education available for not only wealthy individuals, but also extremely poor individuals. There's a wonderful book called The Beautiful Tree. And this book is about how there's lots and lots of private schools for really poor people. And they're all around the world. And often governments will insist that there's no private schools because they're not needed because the state schools are so good here. And of course, uh, that's a bit of propaganda because there are lots and lots of very inexpensive private schools that people often prefer because the state schools, many times the teachers don't even show up, depending on the country, of course. Or the and I mean, so like the first thing is making available to students a real teacher who actually shows up. So we're talking about some of the most advanced techniques of learning effectively, which are still relatively straightforward. But for many students around the world, they just need a good teacher. I mean, access to a good teacher would be a wonderful thing. So the long and the short of it is making uh, giving making it possible so that people with initiative can start inexpensive private schools can be that could be perhaps one of the best ways to help students, a broad number of students, to be able to learn much more effectively. Because research shows that these private schools often are teaching far, far better than government sponsored state schools. And they're at the same time really, really cheap. So I think that's one thing that we could do. as far as state schools go, there's so much inertia. People, the teachers want to teach in the way they've been taught. And so that means that many of them are completely unaware of new research based approaches to effective learning. So you will have some occasional teachers who are very much aware and they teach beautifully, but it's a little bit difficult to change the incentive system within a government school where people who are have been trained in a certain way and there's not a lot of incentive for them to change. So more competition from private schools that are inexpensive could be a great game changer.
Wonderful. Yeah, like the ways, and the second point you focused on was the teachers learning better and more, gathering more data, doing more research to change themselves so that they can influence the students in a much better way, teach them much better ways. I find it parallel to medicine as well. How doctors need to see the human body differently and think about functional medicine versus how you have a disease and this is the way these are the pills that you need to have, etc., etc., versus learning what is out there new, always not only getting stuck at the book and the things they have learned in the past. So I see a sort of parallel, and I think the shift is taking in the West. But the I come from Bangladesh, so I kind of understand the need for access for the students over there. So a lot of poor students who can still afford education. Yeah, thanks for bringing those two points up. And I'm also super curious to see how right now innovation and technology has come in and enhancing the way we take in things and learn, tools, apps. And I think you've mentioned a few in your books that could we could use. So what are your thoughts on that, and what do you think? Do you think a potential for artificial intelligence to come in and sort of push the teachers in a way, or push the students in a way to become better learners?
That's a great question. I think, first off, isn't it bizarre that students will take from 10 to 15 years of education and never get a single course in how to learn effectively? You'd think that that would be one of the most fundamental courses, that insights into effective learning would be something that would be taught early on. And so I think that that needs to be taught. And whether sprinkled throughout many courses is probably an easier way to do it than to wedge some new course into the curriculum. But however you do it, in 50 years, people will look back and say, gosh, that was so primeval during that time. They didn't even teach kids how to learn. And that's the first thing they need to know. But generative AI is so exciting. And it truly is going to revolutionize what is going on, I think, in education. And so that, of course, kind of means that a number of teachers really are anti generative AI because you can understand why. It's kind of like, well, we've always helped our students learn by giving them essays to write and giving them homework where they have to kind of reconfigure some of the basic ideas and solve related problems. And suddenly, generative AI can do all of that for you. So the rug has been pulled out from under teachers. They don't know what to do. And so as a consequence, they're like, I don't like generative AI. But as Fei Li, the great researcher in generative AI, has said, people um, basically people who don't um, master the concepts and the working with generative AI will be replaced by people who do know how to handle generative AI. So, whether teachers like it or not, they need to be learning about this new area. And many teachers, at least the more interested and gifted among teachers, are really doing some great work in this area and really having a lot of fun. But I should mention I'm in the throes now of making a course on using generative AI to speed your learning. So it's there's lots of tricks and insights that generative AI can um, give you access to that we've never had access to before. For example, it sounds trivial, but one of the best ways to master a new concept is to find a good metaphor for that concept, a metaphor that you understand, that sings to you. And I mean, a sort of a simple example is if you're learning about electrical current flow, you can start from the idea of the flow of water and that current and use that as a metaphor to say that electrical current flow is somewhat analogous. Now, yes, at a deeper level, quantum level, it breaks down, but it's a good metaphor between current flow of water and current flow of electricity to get you going on what electricity actually is. So metaphors are really powerful ways of they help you speed your learning, grab the essence of new ideas. But before it'd be like, okay, well, how do I find a metaphor for, whatever I'm trying to learn? Now you can go to generative AI and say, my hobby is soccer, but I need a metaphor to help me understand this basic concept in Python programming. Main guard versus scope. Can you give me some metaphors related to soccer to help me understand those? And by golly, it'll come up with the neatest metaphors that are really something that you can understand. So it can help you grasp new concepts more easily. It can help you grab essential questions so that you can practice with retrieval practice yourself. It's great all the way around.
It's wonderful. I love the initiative that you're taking and your understanding of the potential of generative AI. I myself, I'm a software engineer, and it's one of my missions is to build technology that would influence education, healthcare. So that's where my passions lie. In the future, I would love to talk with you more on this subject of leveraging or building technology. That would be something I'll be interested in. And as far as just coming back to the idea of, so my channel is I have a lot of my guests are we talk about health, mind, body, mindsets, and all these different topics that could uplift the human and help us reach our potential. And I always come back to the body. And what I've seen throughout my life is I've become a better learner later in my life, just because I made a shift in the things that I do. For example, I've started meditation around 5 years ago. I've started yoga and various other practices that gives me access to my body, and I feel more focused, more relaxed, and able to grasp things more. So that is something I personally experience, and I always tell people who are still not there, not able to learn, grasp, and does not have the right mindset. They fear something new. Okay, I'm too old, I'm not able to do this anymore. I'm like, no, there are ways available to us. Our ancestors did it, and there are people, they do it all the time, and sometimes it is built into them. They don't know how, but then it's up to, and then people like you come in and you break down the science and the neuroscience, and then you take that and teach it to other people. So that's really powerful, and thank you very much for all the work that you are doing. And I'm curious, what are your you have any are you working on any upcoming projects at this moment?
Oh, yes, a number of different projects. I'm just finishing that MOOC with Jules White Vanderbilt, who's a generative AI and an AI expert on using generative AI to help you speed your learning. I'm also working on a much more comprehensive MOOC on critical thinking from a neuroscientific perspective. And that will tie in with a second book on generative AI and its neural correlates. And then a third MOOC on the trade offs of free speech, which are difficult to grasp in this rapidly changing day and age of generative AI. It's a revolution now.
Can you expound on the third point? What about free speech?
So, free speech is there is a lot of evidence, of course, that being able to speak freely is often seen in societies that have more creative outcomes. So, for example, the Renaissance, where people could speak a little bit more freely about and sort of, um, if you didn't agree with the idea that the sun was a fixed object in the sky, but instead that it was perhaps rotating and perhaps the earth was rotating around the sun, um, that these ideas could not flourish in an era where there wasn't, where people didn't feel safe in broaching new ideas because they might suffer consequences. So, in this day of and age, there's a lot of cancellation culture, and if I don't agree with you, then your speech should be shut down. And sometimes that can sound like a really good answer. It's like, if someone is putting something online and it's false, then they should shut it down. But who decides whether it's false? That's the real question. Because ultimately, what if your worst enemy was the one who was deciding whether what you said was acceptable or not? You probably would not be happy with the outcome. So there's this set of trade offs with free speech. It sounds terrific to just shut down anything that's false, but who decides what's false? And many of the modern generative AI platforms are exceptionally biased. When you look at the edges, they're really biased. Just start asking about both sides of a controversial issue, and you will begin to understand how biased they can be. There's some wonderful work being done at Carnegie Mellon and on developing chatbots that allow people to discuss in a reasonable manner very contentious issues. And there's like a little guardian that will hop in and say, you shouldn't really phrase things this way. You might want to, and it will suggest a rephrasing. But they had to go into some of the deeper levels of large language models because they found that some of the guardrails were so biased that a that people couldn't really discuss some of the challenging issues that they wanted to discuss. because it would be unfairly moderated. So anyway, that's a fascinating area. I'm having much fun working on that as well.
It's interesting how they've taken a human characteristic of bias. Um, yeah, I've seen that myself. I know about some specific topic. It has to do with energetics and body and a bit of mysticism that I know exist through people I know. And I asked a a historical question to one of the chatbots, and it did dub the whole thing as pseudoscience. It's quite interesting how what frame of mind it takes, it took in. So we have a few minutes left, and I know I caught you in a very short time, and it's partly due to my error. I missed a few minutes.
I've done
And
that
I really
same
hope to.
error so many times. It's so easy to get time zones, kind of out of whack.
So in the last few minutes we have, is there something I was not able to topic that I was not able to broach upon that you'd like the audience and the world to know about learning, or maybe something exciting that you are thinking about, or I would just love your thoughts on anything. It's like an open book now.
Oh, just that. Oh, so many different ideas, but keep your thoughts open. Keep your frame of mind open about what you're able to do and what you're able to learn. Sometimes it is shocking to me. For example, I'll talk to teachers, and teachers will be talking about, oh, growth mindset. You as a student can do all sorts of things. You just can't do it yet. And and then when you talk to those same teachers about, for example, perhaps putting their coursework online and learning how to work online better and create videos, they're like, oh no, I can't do that. I'm not a technical person. And I just have to laugh, because it's like you've just been telling them all about growth mindset. But when it comes to you, it's growth mindset flies out the window. But all of us can do this. We can all kind of go, oh yeah, well, I'm just not a, I don't know, language person, and I'm not a programming kind of person, and I'm not a whatever. But if you just open the door a little bit for new learning and for not just following your passions, but broadening your passions, your life will be greatly enriched.
Yeah, thank you for sharing that. I think if we as humans learn that mindset, since at the time we are kids, I think that would be a great way. Our teachers, our parents, if that they empower us with that specific mindset, I think it will be a great start. Thank you so much, Professor Oakley. It's been a pleasure. I know the topics we brushed upon could go more deep, and I hope to continue this conversation sometimes in the future. And I hope to, I would love to take some of the courses that you have created, and I wish you the best. And I think you are doing a wonderful work for, I think humanity needs people like you.
Well, Shamim, you are an inspiration for me. So thank you so much for having me, and best of luck in all of your learning and your teaching about how to live a wonderful life.
Thank you so much, Professor. You have a beautiful day. Till next time. Ciao.